and a very warm welcome to the FE show as we head into the 12th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. We have a brand new race on our hands this weekend as we're on American soil for the Southwire Portland E-Prix in Oregon. This is a city steeped in history, as does the racetrack. We can't wait to get started at the Portland International Motorway here, and well, to tell us a bit more about the twists and turns that this new circuit is going to bring us. Joining me now is the 2015 Formula E champion Nelson Piquet Jr. and Oliver Askew, a former Andretti driver. Oliver, I feel like we should start off with you, as we are on home soil for you, and there's so much history when it comes to the Andretti team. They've had 5 wins between them, I think Michael and Mario between them. Tell us what we can expect. What are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, it's a home race for Andretti and Penske this weekend. They'll be looking to finish on the top step, of course. And yeah, love Portland, love coming to this track. I've had experience here in IndyCar, and very picturesque, high speed, a lot of right-handers, so taking a toll on the left side tires, and it can certainly be a challenge.
Is it nice to be back?
It is, back in the homeland, of course.
You've had experience here.
Yeah.
And Nelson, it's such a fast track, which brings some elements of excitement, but also plenty of challenges for these drivers. It's just a track that kind of drinks energy from the battery, isn't it?
Drinks energy, fastest top speed, fastest average speed lap over here of all the Formula E races we've been in 10 seasons nearly. So it is going to be very challenging in the race. You know, there's some of these straights they're going to have to be coasting before halfway down the straight. So the drivers are going to have to be very, very patient in looking at that long straight, that corner way ahead of them, and knowing that they're going to have to be coasting for such a long time. So it is going to be one of those tracks where we're going to see a lot of toes, drivers catching each other's toes, a lot of passing. I would say the most amount of passing in any Formula E race, it's going to happen this weekend.
Well,
big claim.
That's going to keep you guys busy in commentary. I'm glad
I'm not going to be counting.
I'll be watching from afar, that's for sure. But I guess it's going to pay off for the guys that are really good at energy management, and that's what this championship is all about. Let's turn our attention to the championship standings at the moment, because we are getting towards the business end. We are 69% way through the season so far, and really it's been a battle between Andretti and Porsche so far. Jake Dennis, Pascal Wehrlein, who now sits just 1 point ahead of Jake. These guys seem unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an all-out fight to the end of the championship in London. Just a couple weeks' time. It's crazy how fast that this season has flown by. But this is going to be a game about consistent finishes. If anyone has a mishap, a DNF, falls out of the points on just one of these occasions, that's really going to hurt them when it comes down to London.
Nick Cassidy, of course, has also managed to sneak in there. Just 5 points between him and Pascal. Yeah, 5 points between him and the guys at the top. What do you rate his chances of taking home the title?
Look, I think Cassidy has been very good at being consistent at all these races. That's why he is up there. He did a little mistake last weekend, unfortunately. All of them do it. I mean, they're driving so much on the limit. These tracks are so difficult. You know, the slight mistake you do, you are close to the wall, you touch the wall, the car, you know, it is very fragile around these tracks. So, you know, he's going to be there. He's shown the whole season he's been very consistent and fast. I'm sure he's going to be there for the fight.
Brilliant. Well, one driver who is looking for a bit of consistency is Sam Bird. Sam, can we bring you in? Racing driver.
How are you, buddy?
He's one of the originals in Formula E. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good, and you?
Very good, thank you. Now, you've pretty much raced on all Formula E tracks. This is... Let's try that again then, shall we? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Well, I'm glad you can.
I'm still next to you.
Can you hear me?
Of course I can hear you.
Sometimes I think you just choose not to hear me, though.
Well, yeah. You know.
But that's another
Selective
conversation.
hearing.
Exactly. Talk to us about this being another new track. It's our 4th new track of this season. What challenges that bring for you? I mean, I know you've put in loads of time on the simulator, but does that correlate? You've had shakedown. Was it what you were expecting?
This is a really different track for Formula E to go to. You know, normally we're making a circuit in a city centre, or we go to an abandoned airfield like Berlin and create a circuit with a load of walls. Whereas this is a proper race circuit. So it's very, very new, very, yeah, as we see a terrible racing driver driving the circuit. Oh God, look at those terrible lines. No, it's good fun. It's going to be a very tricky race. As you see, there's very, very little grip out there at the moment. I think that the grip level really took us by surprise. So we're having to adjust our baseline setups in accordance to the grip level that we've got. But the race, honestly, it's anybody's game. I really think that you can qualify last and you can win this race.
Now, I'm not going to talk about what happened last time out in Jakarta. I'm going to move on. But have you managed to put it behind you? And how can you stay focused on the future?
There's 5 races to go, Nikki. I've had a year that's been much better than last year, but still not where I want to be. I mean, the pace has been there. I think the team actually mentioned to me I've won the championship so far for FP1s and FP2s, which is not...
Great, that's really helpful, Sam,
yeah,
isn't it?
There's no points for that. But the pace is there.
Yeah,
It's just about converting it a little bit more of the time. My consistency hasn't been strong enough, and that's on me. There's been a couple too many mistakes, but also the car's let me down a few times as well. But we have a great car. We've got a very quick car, and I hope to optimize that in the last 5.
Excellent fighting talk. Always good to chat to you, Sam. We will let you go because I think FE1 is about to get underway, so we should probably release you to your team.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, but we will take the microphone back.
Do you want it?
I mean, you could take it in the car with you, but I'm not sure it will stretch that far. Right, I mean, I didn't like to mention it in front of Sam, but we will take a quick look back at what happened in Jakarta because it was a big moment. Obviously, mistakes do happen in Formula E, but this is the second time he unfortunately had a collision with his teammate, Mitch Evans. We can take a look at it now. Small error, but big consequences. Mitch Evans, who was going to finish in the points, span out, leaving. We're walking away with no points from that race. How do you pick yourself up from that?
Well, you don't want to, want it to come down to the end of the season, looking at those missing points and thinking, what if that could have made a difference for me to win the championship? Speaking of Mitch Evans, so certainly an unfortunate incident, and he'll learn from that one and try and put it behind him. That's what racing drivers do. Think about what's ahead of you, focus on what's in your control.
We've seen a little bit how Sam is emotional, I mean, he's very good, very fast. We've seen him winning races in nearly every season since he started Formula E. He's the kind of driver that gets a bit emotional. When things start, let's say, bothering him, he kind of brings it inside the car. And when you go inside these race cars, you need to learn, you need to be able to kind of forget everything and try to be completely protected about any normal person, drivers, but us, we all have personal problems. But when you sit in that car, you need to be able to forget about anything. And Sam just sometimes he's so quick and he's so good, but sometimes it just seems like some of these things, they just get in the middle, and it's human,
Psychological battle sometimes wins over with Sam. Well, what happened with Sam and the Jaguar team, it wasn't the only drama that took place on track with Jakarta. Dan Ticktum, he actually had an incredible recovery drive. He was doing really, really well. Unfortunately, he had a bit of a technical gremlin with his car, and then things got a little colourful on the team radio. We sent Saunders off to find out more.
So Dan, welcome to Portland, Oregon. How are you enjoying being in the US?
I'm quite a fan of sort of American life. I do like pickup trucks and big V8s, and I'm not supposed to admit that, but I do. And obviously NASCAR is something I've always found quite interesting, and so too IndyCar, yeah.
Let's go back to Jakarta. A few things I want to talk about. Let's start with that second race and just the positions that you gained. Talk me through.
Okay, so the positives.
The positives,
okay.
Yeah.
From Saturday, I honestly wasn't expecting much. How the car felt was a lot better than the day before, and I was just like, right, I can keep good minimum speeds here, I can drive as efficiently as I can, sat in the tow, overtook when people made mistakes, and was just generally had a very clean race. And yeah, I got up to 9th, and then I didn't have a way of the car telling me that the front motor was beginning to derate or overheat, so I was then losing efficiency. So for people who obviously saw the rant, that was why I was annoyed, because if I knew that it was coming, I could have maybe reacted to it a few laps earlier and held on to a couple of points. So people that don't know, points for us at the moment is like a win. So it went from not expecting anything to, hang on, I'm in the points, and then obviously I dropped out the points. So it was a very like that in terms of emotions.
Let down by it. Boring. Sake.
even with that, you only lost 2 positions from where you climbed up to. And we're talking P22 to P11 come the end of the race. That's still a very good drive.
It is.
No other driver on this grid can do that. I'm telling you that now.
You know, P22 to P9 would have been, you know, it's only 2 places. Or even if I held on to P10, I would have been happy. So yeah, I was pretty frustrated, and then, you know, I sounded like a bit of a brat.
Roberto, if you're on the intercom, tell my taxi to be ready in 15 minutes. I'm getting out of here.
Believe you me and Roberto have a very good relationship with a lot of mutual respect. So unfortunately, yeah, it didn't come across in that message. But a lot of fans say they want to see, you know, non-PR, you know, authentic characters, and I think a lot of the time I provide that, and believe you me, a lot of the time I've got a lid on it as well. But that was an unfortunate outburst that didn't reflect too well on me, really.
Let's talk about Portland.
Yes, it's a conventional race circuit, so it's a lot faster than most circuits that we drive, a lot more combined corners and very long straights. So yeah, efficiency is going to be pretty king here, yeah. And I think we'll see a lot of the races like we saw in Sao Paulo, i.e. no one wanting to lead in the first half because everyone wants to stay in the tow, and then the last half of the race will be like a bit of a sprint. Because if you look at the difference between sitting in a tow and in clear air, like, I won't say the numbers, but it's enormous around here.
Well, no doubt you're going to bring the entertainment.
Well,
and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Good or bad, yeah.
Legend. Thank you, Dan.
Ah, gotta love Dan Ticktum and his honesty. Never a dull moment with him, that's for sure. But I think I've got 2 slightly cooler, calmer characters with me today. Chris and Julie Ramsey, who, well, I just cannot wait to hear about this adventure, because you guys are bonkers. You are in the middle of basically a drive, a 17,000-mile drive from the North Pole to the South Pole in an all-electric Nissan Ariya. Tell me more. How did this all come about, and how's it going?
It's basically, it's just the next iteration of our journeys. We've driven to Mongolia, so in a 90-mile range Nissan Leaf. Why not drive with an Ariya from pole to pole?
Yeah, I mean, from Mongolia to pole, that's quite a big leap.
Yeah.
And how's it been going?
It's been amazing. I mean, it's just a dream of yours to be at Portland FE, and it's been an absolute delight. We've exchanged cars. We've been talking about this car with the guys, Norman and Sasha. We showed them our car. They want an Ariya. It's been a massive buzz here. We're absolutely loving it.
So just explain to me how you're doing this, because I'm assuming there are no superchargers on the way when you're driving through the North Pole. How are you charging your car?
So in the Americas, we're relying on the public charging network. There's a vast public charging network. And actually in South America, we've worked with a charging company to build a charging network in South America for us and for the public. But up in the Arctic, we've developed a portable wind turbine. We're a 5-volt wind turbine, which we've been using to help charge the car, and we're going to use solar in Antarctica.
I mean, those scenes driving in the Arctic must have just been like one of a kind.
It was magical. It's beautiful. It's just white vastness. And one of the highlights of our trip was we saw a polar bear in the wild.
Amazing.
Magical.
It was amazing. Yeah. And you were just so lucky to see that lone polar bear just doing its thing in the wild. And it was a very, very special moment.
What did he think when he saw you guys?
I think he probably looked and went, oh, that's quiet. But it's showing people just how EVs can manage the toughest of terrains on the planet and just how capable they are. That's why we're doing it.
So we just saw shots of the wind turbine there. So you're using wind effectively to power your electric car?
We used a combination. So we tried to use the wind as much as we could.
Sure.
Unfortunately, Mother Nature had different things for us. There was not much wind up there, unfortunately. Actually, with the warming temperatures, the ice road that we had to go and meet was melting. So that was a byproduct that they've seen of climate change. But we had to use our only reliable solution, which was a 7-kilowatt generator.
Wow.
But we're going to take the learnings from what we've had in Arctic and take that and improve what we're going to do in Antarctica. And yeah, I think it's world's first. It's never been done before. It's pioneering. It's showing innovation. And yeah, we're going to get that windmill back to life again, aren't we? It's not the end of it.
So I've got to ask you, who does the driving? Who's the backseat driver out of you two? You're still speaking, which is impressive.
Yeah, we're still married.
You're still married.
married.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think I do quite a bit of the driving, but Julie does a lot of the social media and a lot of the kind of the sensible planning, because I'm the dreamer and I just get off and I'll just drive. Julie brings me back down to earth.
I drive all the fun bits. Like I did a bit of driving in the Arctic.
Yeah.
And when
you were kind of like Colin McRae.
I was like Colin McRae. I was taking air in the Arctic. It was amazing. It was really fun. And yeah, so we do a combination, but you're probably the main driver. Out of the two
Absolutely mega. You actually have documented so much of it on social as well. Is it pole to pole? You've also got plug-in adventures.
Yes.
So yeah, would urge anyone watching to follow you guys.
Yeah.
Now we can see the Nissan car behind.
Yes.
Seth is getting in the driving seat. You obviously met Norman as well, and amazing to see your logo. How special was that?
I cannot believe it. It's so special. I mean, very, very quickly, when lockdown started, I set up a racing series online for my friends. We actually designed Formula E cars with our liveries on and created a racing series. So to have our logo on a Formula E car now, it's just such a blessing for us. And I'm season 1, day 1, big Formula E fan, as you know, Nikki. So I am in my element here. I love it.
It's a dream come true for us, and it's amazing. And we've loved being here, haven't we?
Yeah.
Such a buzz. Absolutely love it.
Huge congratulations. We can't wait to watch the rest of your journey.
Thank you so
and
much.
Come and tell us about it next season when you get to the end. When's the end of the journey?
We don't go back to the UK until January 2024, which is strange to say to friends, see you in 2024.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing you in 2024. Good luck with the rest of it.
Thank you, Nikki.
Now, obviously, the track here in Portland, hopefully not quite as challenging as the journey that these guys are embarking on. Let's go to Radzi and Oliver to find out more.
Nikki, that story is off the charts. But in terms of the track that we'll be facing, or certainly the 22 drivers will, it is new. The 4th new track of the season. And as you can see behind us here, we're going to talk about Nick Cassidy in just a second. But a man who knows all about it is Ollie Askew, because Ollie, you've raced here.
I have, and it's one of my favorite tracks that I've ever competed on. So I think we're going to have a look here of an onboard lap and take you guys through, what it's like to go around. So here we are on board with Nick Cassidy heading into turn 1. So you see heavy braking, fantastic passing opportunity, 21 meters wide, the front straightaway.
Wow, okay, so it really is wide.
Difficult to put the power down out of 2, as you see, driving off track slightly. And this is that long right-hander, triple apex, putting a lot of energy through that left front, that left rear tire. They'll have to conserve those tires through the race. And as you see, entry oversteer to here, turn 5, and now the attack mode corner, a hairpin coming onto the long back straightaway. Extremely important to put the power down, get a good launch going down the back straightaway here. 171 miles per hour in shakedown.
And the upshot of this is it's going to be a very, very fast period that we've got, the fastest possibly in FE history.
Possibly, yes. And we'll see how fast they go when they hit 350 power. And as you see, the car going through here, the very fast, high commitment chicane, turns 10 and 11, and now finishing the lap through the final corner, turn 12, back on this front straightaway, and again, into a very important passing opportunity.
Mate, beautifully explained. At some point, we'll find out why it is your favourite track, because if Ollie likes it, it's going to be something special. But Nikki, there's so much going on here.
Brilliant to get to know all the ins and outs of this rather challenging circuit. Nelson, the other different thing about this track is that, well, we would normally say that we're standing in the pit lane, but it's not the pit lane, it's the push lane. What does that mean?
Well, we're in America. This is American racing, you know.
We don't do American racing. We don't know about that.
Same thing as Long Beach, you know. Long Beach, we had to push the cars out of the pit lane, and then we came over here.
Oh,
you see over here right behind us?
Yeah.
They're going to push the cars all the way around to the, let's say, the fast lane, the pit lane. And that's the way it's done over here. They have a big concrete wall where mechanics jump over it, not in this case, but in case of NASCAR, IndyCar. So that's how the tracks are built over here in America, most of them. So they're going to push them around. Everybody has a couple of minutes, like about, I think, 10 minutes, I would say. And you see all the cars coming by. Some of the drivers are already in the car. Some of them, they'll prefer walking over there and then get in the car. And then they'll have everything there. They'll have tools, front noses if they need to change. Everything is there in case during practice they're going to stop, change something, change tires. Everything is going to be done from the fast pit lane. So this is just like their garage, but they have to push, and everything is done in the other side.
And is there much of an advantage or disadvantage of doing it this way?
It's the same for everybody. So, no, it doesn't mean. I mean, it's just a little bit more work for the guys because they have to push everything there. They have to bring the tires.
They have to move house, basically.
A little bit. But there's the Costa. He's comfortable in the car, making them push him. But yeah, no, it's the same for everybody. It's not a big difference.
All right then. Well, let's go and hear from Pascal Wehrlein, who is our driver at the top of the championship, but only by 1 point. He's for Saunders.
Pascal, welcome to the USA, Portland, Oregon. Are you enjoying being here in the US? Do you like coming to the US?
Yeah, definitely. It's not as hot as in Jakarta, but still good weather. New track, so yeah, excited.
Pascal Wehrlein takes victory in Jakarta. Let's go!
You're back at the top of the standings. Does that change your approach to a race now, knowing that you're now the one with the target rather than chasing back the lead?
No, I mean, every weekend we try to extract the maximum out of our package, collect as many points as we can. We're approaching the end of the season. You know how close Formula E is, and things are changing quite a lot. So yeah, still 5 races to go and many points to collect.
Okay, let's talk about that hunt for the title and where things are in the standings. Jake Dennis is just a single point behind you. This feels like a rivalry that's been growing since the start of the season, you know, all the way back in Mexico. Their consistency is sort of podium, 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 podium. You've kind of returned to form. Do you feel, though, now you can follow in consistency now from here to the end of the season?
I think so. I think we have the package. I think we have the pace. We just need to optimize our weekends and show our full potential. I think that's what we've missed in the last couple of races, that there's always been something disturbing our performance, and then we were in a situation where it was missing just a tenth or two, but in Formula E that's crucial.
What the f was that? Bit off with that swerving under braking, man.
It got a little bit heated in Jakarta in that first race. You know, has the relationship changed between customer and manufacturer team? Is it a lot more fiery and competitive now?
Not from my side. Nothing has changed. I see everyone as the same competitor, and I think there are still a couple of drivers in the fight for the championship. Comments have been made, obviously, in Jakarta, but that's not my business. I just try to do my best, and that's it.
There's quite a few people saying that qualifying might be important here because of the energy difficulties in the race. That's an area where you've struggled a little bit this season.
Actually, I think qualifying is not that important here because it will be so easy to overtake. There will be a lot of energy saving in the race, and it will be easy to make progress. So you need to be very efficient in the race.
Do you think you can leave here in the same position at the top of the standings?
I think we can. I think we can win the race. I feel prepared, we feel prepared, and we try our best to extend the lead in the championships, both championships, and then heading into the last 2 weekends, Rome and London with a lead.
Pascal Wehrlein there, looking as cool as ever. But there's still got to be so much pressure involved. I don't know how they do it. Okay, so we're almost going to go into FP1, but before we do, I need a quick prediction from you, Oliver. I know it's very difficult to predict in Formula E, and actually you guys can get involved at home because we do have our predictor on the app. You can click on the QR code, which is at the bottom of the screen there. Get involved, get predicting, see if you agree or disagree with Oliver. What are you going to go for?
Which driver is going to win this weekend?
Yeah!
Let's go with Sam Bird. Wouldn't that be a comeback? You don't like my answer?
I mean, I wasn't expecting it.
I wasn't prepared for the question.
Well, there you go. Okay, so Sam Bird for the win for you. And who's on pole position?
Ooh, Andre Lotterer.
Andre Lotterer. Wow.
Again,
okay.
She doesn't like it.
You're going for the outsiders. You're not going for the predictable. But that is Formula E. It's unpredictable.
It's not a typical track. No. So it's anybody's game. Whoever did their homework the best.
Excellent. Well, there you go. Get involved. We can't wait to find out what happens tomorrow in the race. But first, it is FP1 taking place for the first time here in Portland, Oregon. And tomorrow we'll find out who will be going home as the winner.
Hello and welcome to free practice 1 of the 12th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. You're joining us in Portland, Oregon for the Southwire Portland E-Prix, our 4th new location of the season, bringing electric racing to the northwest of the USA on a circuit that has been home to the likes of IndyCar and NASCAR and American racing. One of the greenest cities in the States, vibrant city in the shadow of Mount Hood and surrounded by Columbia River Gorge. I mean, just look at that. That is a beautiful backdrop of a city that we will be racing in this weekend. But there is free practice first to begin with and see where these drivers start lining up for the first time of this weekend. As we know, Portland is now in the business end of the season, and we're going to find out what the rest of the season looks like location-wise. So yeah, this weekend marks the 25th race in North America and the last single header of the weekend. We've got a double header in Rome that follows the Eternal City in just a few weeks' time. A fan and driver favourite on the calendar. And all of that comes to a close with a double header in London on an indoor-outdoor circuit where drivers and team champions will be crowned. Here we have Antonio Felix da Costa, smiley as always, sunglasses on, ready to go. Jean-Eric Verne for DS Penske here, a guy that's very much in the title fight, as is this man, Mitch Evans. And Nick Cassidy there, the other Kiwi, up in the title fight, just currently sitting 3rd in the standings. Jake Dennis 2nd in the standings, just a solo point behind Pascal Wehrlein. Now let's have a look at how these driver standings are shaping up, because it is getting interesting towards the end of this season. Let's have a look. Pascal Wehrlein regained his position at the top of the standings, but only leads by a single point to Jake Dennis in what is shaping up to be an incredibly tight title fight. And Nick Cassidy follows in 3rd spot, just 5 points behind. Little blip in Jakarta for him, but very consistent running. We'll see him return to the podium, heel wanting that to happen and keep the pressure on the others. Now as we look at the second half of the standings here, you've got Stoffel van Dorn, reigning champion, 42 points in 11th. You've got Lucas de Grassi for another former champion with 18 points, and then Nico Muller closing out the order for at Cupra. Now if we have a look at how the teams are shaping up, because it's a slightly different story. In the team standings, it's the Tag Heuer Porsche, 22 points in the lead against Envision Racing, and then Jaguar TCS Racing on 190 and 171 points. Still very close to the team standings, but Porsche pairing, they're getting all the points, where others, it's more done by just one other driver. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Now let's have a look at where the teams are going to be racing this weekend. And to do that, let me bring in Oliver Askew, the only guy in the paddock who's actually raced this circuit. Oliver, take it away.
Yes, absolutely love coming back here to Portland. As you see here from the track map, immediately you notice the 2 very long straightaways connected by mostly right-hand corners. So as I've said before, very important to take care of that left front, especially through this very high-speed triple apex right-hander through turns 4 and 5. Coming back through turn 6 and then a hairpin slow speed turn 7. Important to get a strong run onto the back straightaway there. And then turn 10, turn 11, a very high speed chicane. We'll see drivers try and shortcut that first apex. That's a lap around Portland International Raceway.
I mean, Oliver, that looks incredibly exciting, incredibly fast. Now, I just mentioned it, you've driven here in the past. Behind the wheel, what are some of the characteristics of this circuit?
From my experience, it's quite an understeery circuit. So,
is that a word, understeery?
Understeery? No, I don't think so, but we're going to pretend it is for the moment. So under rotation is a tendency for this circuit. It's important for these teams and drivers to understand that, especially coming from a typical Formula E track where it's very stop and go, slow speed, 90-degree corners that we see on a lot of street tracks. So. Important to get that front axle hooked up on these long duration corners and to really take care of the left front, as I mentioned.
So here we go, green flag on this free practice session as the cars head out for the track for the first time session of the weekend. And there's a good opportunity to bring in who else is joining us in the commentary booth. Now that is former Formula E driver, Season 1 champion Nelson Piquet Jr. Now Nelson, this is a step away from the type of location that we're used to racing in. Very long circuit, it's going to be very tough on energy. What can we expect?
Yeah, very different, definitely. The amount of pollen in this track, it's actually killing my eyes over here. I'm so sorry for all my sniffing, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a track where drivers are going to be able to push more. They're going to be able to go over the limit without any big risks. You know, I mean, you have a lot of runoff areas. There's no big, tough walls around you that will damage your car and will be your game over in case you do a mistake. So I see drivers driving a bit differently, you know, taking a bit more risks, going a little bit off the track sometimes, and really, really extracting everything out of the car. Now, it is very long straights. Average speed is very high. It's probably it is the highest from all the tracks, all the races Formula E has come since season 1. So there is going to be a lot of energy management in this track. It's going to be crucial. The drivers are going to have to be very patient in the race. But yeah, I mean, in terms of qualifying, it's going to be fun because let's see what they have to say. Not much. So yeah, qualifying is going to be interesting because qualifying in the street track, you need to be so confident to really extract that speed because you cannot afford any mistake. You know, if you lock up, if you go a little bit wide on the corner, anything, you're touching the wall and that's it. You know, there's no second chance. And this track is different. You know, you're going to be able to go a bit on the curb, grass, and so it's going to be a little bit different.
So we're just now watching the two Maserati MSG racing drivers, Maximilian Günther, Eduardo Mortara. Now, Maximilian Günther, in terms of one-lap pace, if you go purely on consistency, in Jakarta, he was unbeatable. He was the king of Jakarta, fastest in all time sessions, 2 pole positions, a podium, and then the race win. So it's not surprising why we'll be looking at a driver like him to potentially follow that up this weekend.
Yeah, there's 2 reasons. One would be that it was very impressive what he did in Jakarta. The confidence he had there was the car. I mean, it just seemed like the car was in rails over there, literally, and he was just on top shape. I mean, you hardly see something like that with drivers on double headers. But the main reason which I think why they're going to be good is Valencia, which is the track which they tested, they did the pre-season testing, which is sort of similar to this, you know, very wide, very spread out. They were very quick over there. Now, you know, I don't know if it was because the teams were hiding something, they weren't using all the potential, but in this kind of track, which was the track they were doing pre-season testing in Valencia, which had similar characteristics, they were very quick there. So, I don't know. Let's see what's going to happen. It's so predictable. I mean, everybody's so competitive, so many good teams and drivers, so it's going to be hard to really understand what's going to happen.
So as the laps start to come in, and people start doing their first push laps, we start to see some timing shaping up. But yeah, if you have noticed just watching the screen, it looks like snow is in Portland, but I can tell you it's not the case. There's not snow. It's cottonwood trees, and it's sort of like the pollen of that falling off, which is Sandbird Team Radio.
Degrassi has to go, doesn't he? Has to go. Ridiculous.
Sandbird seemingly have some problem with Lucas Degrassi there. I guess that's, yeah, Lucas is holding him up in front, getting really tight there, just on what is probably just an outlap or a first-time lap for Mitch Evans, but not Sandbird. Interesting.
Yeah, a few hand signals there from both of those drivers. It looked like there were a couple in line there trying to open a lap, and Lucas Degrassi was just going through, not acknowledging that everyone was preparing to go for a flyer. So
not having the patience, basically.
No, but hey, it's 5 minutes into FP1.
There's a lot more to come.
Everyone's trying to find their feet. And speaking to some of the drivers after shakedown, most of them were very surprised by how low grip the track was, which I'm surprised by, because from my experience here, this is one of the most high grip circuits. So will be interesting to see the track progression. Of course, that's an important subject in Formula E.
Potentially we'll see that grip increase as more driving takes place, because the word in the paddock and all the mathematicians and the statisticians that are looking at this is that we are going to be breaking records on this circuit. We're talking top speed records, we're talking average speed of a lap. So yes, it's going to be very exciting to see, and I think we're actually only moments away from seeing it. I believe we're going to see it in this session potentially.
A top speed record and possibly an overtaking record in the race tomorrow, which we're very much looking forward to. Many passing zones on this circuit. It's so wide. The front straightaway 21 meters wide. I think it becomes even wider heading into this hairpin here, turn 6, as we see Pascal Wehrlein. Look at the entry. Look how inviting that is. So crucial opportunity to overtake. And the difficult part about that right-hand hairpin is that if you defend on the entry, you're then going to be vulnerable on the exit going down the back straightaway. Here's Pascal.
Main time loss was 6 to 7 and turns 10 to 11, just for info. I know it's very early, 1 lap.
Some information coming there from Pascal's engineer. Now, talking about this, we can see how fast and flowing this circuit is. It's very high speed. There's a lot of opportunity to take speed into corners, but crucially, they do have to contend with these tyres, which aren't always very forgiving when it comes to traction. It's all well and good in a practice session like this, half an hour to put lap in after lap. Let's just have a quick look at this Sam Bird. This is Sam Bird getting a bit spicy. He's Luca de Grassi.
Absolute de Grassi's been there. Absolute lap's done, mate.
Yep.
Lap's done.
Really not very happy. I mean, did he need to get that aggressive that early into the free practice session?
In my opinion, no.
So, yeah. So we're just getting some stats in now, and Eduardo Mortaro, who's currently top of the timings, has just recorded the first 100 miles per hour average lap in Formula E history. And there's something poetic about that we're doing Imperial 100 miles per hour in the States, where that would be very much appreciated. But there we go, record broken already, and we're only 8 minutes into the practice session.
And we've yet to take 350 power as well.
Exactly. I like it.
There's more to come.
So a couple of things to be aware of in this race weekend is that we're probably looking at a 28 laps, a much shorter race than we're used to. And the word in the paddock is that the sort of slipstream style of racing that we've come accustomed to this season is very much going to be the case here again. People aren't going to be wanting to lead. And interestingly, guys, having spoken to a few drivers in the track walk, just the numbers that are coming out in terms of difference between qualifying pace and race mode, some drivers predicting 6 seconds to 9 seconds of difference. That shows you just how energy hungry this circuit's going to be.
So you see a replay here. Is that Andre Lauder?
Yeah, you see, that's the kind of thing where if it wasn't a street track, that would be in the wall, and that's game over, you know? So sometimes being in these kind of tracks, it is a bit forgiving, you know? Ooh, there was nowhere.
Yeah, Andre coming through trying to complete a lap, whereas the driver in front who missed was going to open a lap coming onto the front straightaway.
But we were talking about energy management on this track. Yeah, it's going to be a huge difference between qualifying pace, the lap time, and the race. The race are going to be they're going to have to save a lot of energy. Some of these straights are going to be backing off and coasting, what we call it, nearly even before halfway down the straight. So drivers going to have a lot of patience over here to see that corner really far away, and just wait and coast that whole period over there through until the corner. And so that's why also toe effect is going to make a big difference. I think teams are going to be playing with each other, you know, helping each other, teammates over here, which that will be something really possible. A little bit like the Indy 500, you know, you're able to help each other if you want to. So I think this might be the case, you know. Obviously, we're getting towards the end of the championship, so, you know, maybe some of these teams, they have one of the drivers that are contending for the championship. So, you know, which probably Jaguar, for example, I think Sam is in the position perhaps to give back a few favors to Mitch.
Absolutely. So, having spoken to a few different drivers in the track walk and the pit lane today, and sort of trying to correlate their data from the simulator into their first running, the average lap time between quali and race mode differs by about 3 or 4 seconds, depending, I guess, on the efficiency of the car. But one thing that was completely the same across all drivers I asked was that the slipstream, if you do a conversion from time to energy, is worth about 2 seconds a lap. That is a huge saving from that slipstream. So no wonder they're all thinking and they're all running strategies on how to maximise that. I even heard some drivers talking about some very unorthodox styles of trying to get in the slipstream or not leading. Things like maybe potentially faking attack mode or not doing a burnout on the start to lose positions in order to dictate the race.
You said a good point. I mean, the burnouts, you know, some of the drivers already, like let's say in Jakarta, they weren't doing that much of a burnout because of energy, just to save a bit of energy. So I have no doubt that at least I would be surprised if more than half the field predict those big burnouts over here at the race tomorrow. I think, you know, Ollie.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more and paint the picture as to why slipstream effect is helping energy in a race. So, of course, when you're on any % of throttle, you're taking energy out of the battery, and coasting is a tool that these drivers use to prolong the battery life and get to the end of the 35-lap race. So when you have a car in front of you, there's less air resistance, so you're able to coast earlier than you would if you had clean air in front of you and more air resistance. So that's the reason. It's a reason for the slipstream effect and why it's so important.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think what the drivers perhaps told you, I think you can coast 2 seconds more a lap when you are behind someone. So basically, you're 2 seconds a lap less throttle when, let's say, the leader and there's a second place car right behind him. The car behind will be utilizing a lap 2 seconds less of throttle.
Absolutely. Let's see what happened with Jake Dennis here. A little bit of grass cutting going on. Like you said earlier, Nelson, like, there's so much room for error here. We're not used to that in Formula E. The walls are always there, they're imposing, they're ready to ruin your race day. But there is so much more room for error here.
Yeah, I mean, drivers are going to be easily taking risks.
Keep me posted on your intended pace based on the front temps, whether you hold position ahead of him or not.
Sorry, Nelson.
Yeah, no, drivers are just going to be taking much more risks over here. You're going to see drivers going off the grass, just finding the limits of the car and the track much more than any other track, just because there's no walls over here. So, you know, there's no, penalty if you go over. You know, I mean, the penalty, and I mean, there's no damaging your car if you go off the track a little bit, you know, on the grass. So, very different from the conventional race of Formula E, which you're not allowed to do any mistakes because you're going to be damaging a few suspension and a few carbon bits.
So interesting, just looking on the screen now, we've got Andre Lotterer and Jake Dennis from Avalanche Andretti, who both received a black and white flag for
It's
that
Mary
incident.
on energy. I'm going to catch him on this second push, which is the important one.
So Jake Dennis there talking to his team, trying to maximise that lap time, not get caught up in any traffic. But yes, so we are seeing now René Rast at the top of the timing with a 1:10.8. Now going into this session, we needed an average speed based on lap time of 1:14. And if that was broken, that would be a new record that would beat Sasha Fennerstraat in Cape Town. And that's been done by about 3.5 seconds already. So yeah, we are going to see records here. We've already seen them, and especially in the qualifying tomorrow with more 350. There's a big run-off there from the Nissan.
It's Norman Nato, I believe. And in series that I have raced in at this track, this last sector, turn 10, 11, 12, is where most of the incidents happen. Because it's just so high speed, there's very little margin for error. So not a surprise to see some drivers going wide and using the runoff.
So those with a keen eye watching the Nissan now might see just at the front of the front wing, there's a little sticker that says pole-to-pole expedition. And that is an incredible all-electric expedition taking place by Chris and Julie Ramsey, who are driving from the Arctic, the North Pole, to the South Pole in an electric Nissan over 10 months, which is a remarkable thing. And that is being represented on the Nissan Gen 3 car, who they're being involved in that by supplying them a Nissan to do it in. But yes, let's get back to business and talk about some things we have to look forward to this weekend, or this Saturday, with race day tomorrow. So we've talked about records, we've talked about a number of overtakes, but a lot of the drivers saying that their understanding is this could be one of the most chaotic Formula E races we've ever seen, which is incredibly exciting for us getting to watch it.
Sure. Well, ever since Brazil, we've seen the introduction of peloton racing, I guess is what we're calling it now. Big groups of cars trying to enhance that slipstream effect and basically make it to the last quarter of the race with more energy than their competitors. So as we see, fantastic onboard shot here of Nick Cassidy going through turn 3.
Also, the chance to see the telemetry on the side, underneath Nick Cassidy's name, you can see the loading of the car and how, you know, this is a really great, this is live telemetry coming back from the car. It's so fascinating to see, to show you kind of where the, I mean, like, I love it. I love it. Such a great addition. We've only had this for a few races, but it really gives you an idea of how these guys are actually driving these cars and where the loading is, how the braking and the regen works. It's fascinating. Now, this has just come in, guys, looking at the numbers and the lap times. Jake Dennis has just recorded the first 101 miles per hour average lap in Formula E history. So we're breaking records almost lap by lap at the moment.
Yeah, as the track gets better, these Hankook tires starting to lay down rubber. That's just going to continue to drop throughout this session. And I wouldn't be surprised if qualifying tomorrow is another second, maybe 2 seconds faster than what we're seeing right now. So, yeah, important for the drivers and teams to stay on top of the track progression. Here's Cassidy.
Push 300 and cool down.
There we go, another record as well. Nico Müller set the official record Formula E top speed as well, 269.2 kph or 167.2 miles per hour for the American audience. Now, if you think about that comparatively, the reason why I think that's quite interesting is that, you know, 164, we're talking about give or take 4 miles per hour off an IndyCar top speed here. That's amazing. That's great to see. And probably unexpected, I would say, maybe.
These cars are really getting a chance to stretch their legs, and I'm happy that we're getting to see them on an open road course like this. And possibly in the future, we'll go to more permanent road courses. And as we see,
here's Frederick Bertrand here for Mahindra Racing. Now, the reason we're looking at him is because Roberto Meri has just set an all-time top speed record of 170 miles per hour. It's going to get old now, isn't it? Just every lap.
And
New record.
And
new
Lucas
record.
Di Grassi going to the top and just over halfway here in FP1. That's good to see. That's a team that's struggled a lot so far this year.
And for those drivers and teams that do struggle with energy efficiency towards the latter stages of the race, that qualifying position is so much more important than the likes of the Jag Power or the Porsche Power cars, where they'll be the first to tell you that qualifying is sort of irrelevant for them. They have the ability to maybe be as far back as 10th, 11th, 12th, even further, and still be able to push for a win.
The problem is if you start in that area, you leave yourself vulnerable to incidents. We know that around 10th place, that final points paying position is the most dangerous in a race, because everyone, from 10th to 15th to 20th is trying to get into that top 10 the entire race. So I would like to start up front and stay up front and not have to worry about any of that.
So just to give you some comparison of the previous records, we're talking a lot about records here. So it was in Brazil that Sergio Sette Câmara set a 164.1 miles per hour top speed, and Roberto Meri has just hit a 170 miles per hour. So we're looking at about a 6 miles per hour increase already, and there's probably still more to come, because we've seen some drivers not even do a full 350 lap yet.
Yeah, it's impressive how fast these cars have become compared to season 1. I mean, obviously it's a track which has a much longer straight, but I think even if season 1 car would have come over here, I don't know how quick it would be, but it is a big difference. When I drove these cars in Jakarta and Brazil, it's when you put down the power, it is real power. If these cars obviously had slick tires, I mean, you would see even more top speed, because it would be able to exit the corners much quicker. And I would imagine close to 300 kph perhaps at the end of the straights if they had real, conventional slick tires.
So we just watched that replay of Jean-Eric Verne there using the full use of the runoff area. Now, interestingly, Jev has scored the highest number of points at new locations across the season this season. So clearly a driver that can get up to speed quickly with new circuits, and evidently he's sitting there currently second fastest in the timings, as is his teammate Van Dorn in the top 5. Is it experience that does that? Is there something about Jev that means he can pick this up quickly, or is it purely just because he's been racing Formula E cars for a decent amount of time?
I would say it's a combination of both, and possibly really paying attention when they go into the simulator. A lot of the teams do that on the Monday and Tuesday before race weekend. So yeah, being able to transfer that experience from the sim to the real track is an extremely important part of Formula E. And I mean, Jeff's just an all-around great guy. Very, very talented driver.
So we have Alex Freed there, Neo 333 Racing Team Principal. Now, where are they setting up at the moment? Tictum currently 10th quickest, and Sergio down in 20th. But Tixham, I believe. Tixham has done 2 350 kilowatt laps. Sergio's only done 1. So we might see an improvement there, but there is definitely some very competitive lap times. We're now into the 109s with Stoffel's lap just there. So we're looking quick. It's significantly getting quicker.
And it's good to see how accurate these simulators are. I don't know if you guys remember in the warm-up practice before this, when Sam's engineer said, okay, well, one of the drivers did a 1:14 in a 350 lap. You know, it's about 5 seconds off the pace of our simulator, meaning that they had lapped on the 1:09s, and that's what they're doing right now. I don't think it's going to get much quicker than that. You know, maybe high 8s. I don't know, might be wrong, but I think this is the kind of track where you find the limits pretty early, different from driving a track full of walls around. Let's see what's...
Jean Verne again there, really utilising, really pushing.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of track that allows you to really push early on, and you know, there's no, you know, there.
Tell you what, he's lucky he had the access road there to help slow down the car.
Yeah.
If he continued in the grass, it might have looked like a different conclusion.
But yeah, these kind of tracks, it allows you to push and take these risks and, you know, just go off and come back. So they are going to find the limits much quicker in this track. So I would be surprised if it gets much quicker than 109s, maybe 108s, and the high 108s.
So let's get stuck into some championship analysis. I know it's free practice 1, but let's talk about the drivers that we expect to do well here this weekend, who might be able to utilise and maximise their potential performance on a circuit like this. Who are we looking at, guys? We're looking at the Porsche powered, the Jag powered. Anyone else you want to throw in there?
It's so hard to predict. Extremely difficult. From my comments earlier, here's Sam Bird Radio.
Traffic, final sector, Porsche.
A lot of complaining about traffic on the radio this session.
Yeah, I mean, the delta difference between a quali lap and a race lap is so big over here. And some of the drivers are doing quali laps, some of them are doing race simulations. So there is a big difference of speed in this track because of the high management, the high consumption track we are in. So, like you said, qualifying, they're going to be qualifying in 109s, 108s perhaps. In the race, they're going to be doing 115s. So it's like 5, 6 seconds delta difference.
Going back to my point on who I predict to go well this weekend, I think it comes down to which cars are able to roll the highest minimum speed through these sweeping corners, and which cars have a strong front axle who have a lot of front grip.
Well, Pascal Wehrlein on his fastest lap for his timing so far, and you can see just coming up that really long back straight, the speed looked so quick on that onboard camera, and he nicely tied it around those corners to go up into 5th quickest, about just under 5/10 off Van Dorn. Let's have a look at what Dan Ticktum's been up to.
Same corner, same way as John-Eric Verne, so going through the high-speed chicane, turn 11 and 12, and just couldn't get the car back to the right. But hey, you need to push the limits now before we get down to business in FP2 and ultimately qualifying. So mistakes now in this session are granted and shouldn't happen later on.
So this circuit, as we've seen in this session, is just getting quicker and quicker. But when it comes to qualifying, maximising that one lap, really, you know, if you're in the duels, is going to be so demanding. You can't leave anything out there, but there's also as we've seen, there's actually quite a lot of room for error and going off and completely destroying your lap.
Yeah, potentially completely destroying the car as well. We know there's not much time between qualifying and the race, so something that's always in the back of these drivers' minds. So we see Jake Hughes completing a push lap and goes to P7. I am surprised of the spread between P1 and P10 at the moment. 8/10's not something that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing much closer lap times, but of course, everyone getting used to a brand new circuit. Ian James looking on. Both cars in the top 10 at the moment.
Let me just have another look at Jake Hughes here in the Neil McLaren. Sliding his way around that corner. Looking for every ounce of grip he can get. He has been a quick driver this season, Jake Hughes. Both him and speaking of rookies, him and Sasha Fenestrat have looked quick in qualifying. JQ's up there in 7th quickest. Sasha Fenestrad's down in 19th quickest at the moment. I would expect to see a bit more from him, but he has only done one full 350 power lap, so maybe there is more to come. Van Dorn putting even faster sectors in. The fastest in sector 1. Let's see how that unfolds through the rest of this lap as he approaches halfway through sector 2. Van Dorn, an interesting story here because, you know, coming off the back of a title-winning year, this has not been really a great season for him. He's shown promise in qualifying, he's been up there, but when it comes to the race, he just seems to sort of struggle a little bit. What do you think that's down to? Especially because his teammate Jev has managed to get podiums.
I think it's just putting everything together, you know. He's had a little bit of bad luck. Didn't perform in qualifying as good as he did last year. So yeah, it's just so difficult. I mean, the margins are so small. Let's see what he says.
FP1 mode, and we keep pushing. FP1 and we keep pushing.
Yeah, so I think it's just hasn't been exactly his year, and Jev, he's just been performing very well. You know, he's been maximizing the points, doing very good races, as we see. The India race, the defending he did the last couple of laps was amazing. So
you could say the same thing about Eduardo Mortara, a driver that Stoffel Van Dorn fighted for the championship with last year. Now moving to the Gen 3 car hasn't really clicked for him. So it just goes to show how difficult this car is to drive and understand.
I mean, also, you know, in terms of teammates, Vern's got the added benefit of already working with a lot of that team already, where Stoffel's come into a new team, completely new setup from what he had at Mercedes EQ. So yeah, it's a learning curve. But he is getting, they are slowly improving, and right now they are the 2 quickest drivers in this session. In that Stellantis powered DS Penske. So would that make you think that the Maserati should also be up there? Because usually when one of them do well, the others do as well.
But like I said, I mean, I do still think that the Maseratis, they are going to have to pace over here. Oh, here we go. Gunter P2. Is Buemi, did he suffer something? Might have had an issue over there. But yeah, I do think we do see the 2 powertrains now topping the list. I do think they are going to be quick, you know. Valencia at the beginning of the year showed a lot of pace, so this is a similar track. So I do think that they have, you know, a good chance of being extremely quick over here. But still, that may be in qualifying, and the race is going to be a chess game. You know, it's all going to be about towing, about energy management, be positioning yourself in the right place, the right time. I don't think it's going to be ultimately about pace itself.
So Dan Tixon's managed to get up there in the top 3 quickest times. Now, 1 lap pace, definitely Dan Tixon has shown what he can offer this season. The car has not really allowed him to maximise that in the races, but he has had a solid running of points, probably more than Neo have been used to in the previous seasons and running they have had. So for someone like Tixon, you want to be up amongst it, don't you, really, going into the race?
I do rate him a very good driver, but, you know, he's new. His patience is a little bit short at the moment, but it's something with age. He's going to mature a little bit. He's going to learn how to deal with these kind of issues normally. I mean, it's not every year you drive with the best car, with the best team. You have to know how to deal with these difficult situations sometimes. So he is very passionate about it. You see Buemi is a bit upset.
Someone who's also very passionate about it, Sebastian Buemi.
But no, Tixon has proven several times to be very quick, qualifying sometimes in the top 10. So I would like to see him, you know, in a car which perhaps would give him a better chance to really prove what he can do.
Da Costa just slides up into the top 5 in that Tag Heuer Porsche Formula E car, pretty much breaking a trend within the teams at the top of the team standings, because both those Porsche drivers have been pretty solid at picking up points. I mean, where Pascal had fallen behind after his race wins in Diriyah, a big old gap from without a podium, Da Costa was there on the podium while making up good points, just keeping that Porsche Teams Championship alive. Now let's have a look at Max Günther here, who was the quickest in all-time sessions in Jakarta, now currently 3rd quickest in his last lap. Can he improve that lap time, or will that be it for him? Jean-Eric Verne finished the session 2nd, but there's still a chance for people to slide up ahead. Nico Müller at Kuprug Very promising lap time from him. Dan Tickton moves up another position. As we see the last final lap times coming in now as this session draws to a close. René Rast up into the top timing of the session with a 1:09.54. René Fast, as he's known with his friends.
How good do these cars look around here?
They look amazing.
Incredible.
I always, I must be honest with you, going into a purpose-built traditional circuit like this, it often maybe concerns me of how the cars will look because they're much smaller than other like NASCARs or Indy cars that are used to racing on here. But I've been proved wrong. They look great.
It looks like they're meant for it.
Exactly. And here's René Rast, the man who was quickest in this session for Neil McLaren. Looking at him directly, and you see the team in the side picture there. Good running. Like René has shown great pace this season, but he converted it to 1 podium so far in Diriyah. But yeah, not a lot since then.
He put in a heater. Not many drivers able to come close to René Rast this session, but of course, lots of work to be done tonight in the engineering office, trying to understand the new circuit.
No, I was just going to say that there's only, okay, you can see a bit of a spread from P1 to P10, about 6/10, but I mean, you get P5 to P10, there's only 1.5 tenths difference, so the field is pretty close. I'm sure some of the guys didn't get clear tracks. You didn't see, not everybody utilized their 350 laps. Some of them didn't at all. So I do think it's going to be pretty tight.
So now we watch the practice starts take place. Now, we mentioned this earlier on in the session about whether we'll see burnouts at this position come the race tomorrow. Will people want to put themselves in a position to lead in the start of this race, or will they kind of want to sacrifice that in order to be in a better position?
Well, it's all about efficiency. So one burnout, maybe it's going to make you lose. If you don't do the burnout, maybe you're going to lose, 1 position, 2 positions, but you can recover that so easily during the race.
Right-hand side, please. Right-hand side, and no burnout.
There we go.
Exactly, there we go.
Slight delayed message there from René's engineer, but yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so I mean, they're probably going to, all the teams that ask one of the drivers to do it to the left, one to do it to the right, see if there's any difference in grip. But yeah, I mean, it's not worth it, the burnout, It's that a bit amount of energy that's, if you're able to accelerate 1 or 2 more seconds longer in the straight, that might gain you even more than 1 or 2 places. So, like McLaren just did, I really don't think they're going to be doing burnouts tomorrow.
So just for those interested in top speeds, it was Mitch Evans that had the fastest top speed of the session, 171.9 miles per hour, just short of 8 miles per hour quicker than Sergio Setticamera was able to do in Brazil. So yeah, records have been broken, no doubt. There are going to be more broken as the weekend unfolds, especially with qualifying tomorrow. Now, we can have a little look at how this season, this session unfolded, where the timings have left people standing up going into the rest of this weekend. So here we go, René Rast at the top with a 1:09.054. Jean-Eric Byrne, the DS Penske, following him, followed by Dan Tickton in the Neo 333 racing car. Great show of pace from him. Followed by Sam Bird, a big improvement in pace from the Jaguar TCS racing driver there. Just short of 5/10 slower than René Rast at the top. Maximilian Günther behind him, the king of Jakarta, showing good pace again to make a top 5 time. Nico Müller behind that, Stoffel Van Dorn. And then we have Jake Hughes and Neil McLaren 11th. Jake Dennis down in 15th, Avalanche Andretti. I'm sure he would like to have shown a quicker pace, but as he said earlier, qualifying for that team with that powertrain and that efficiency is not as important when they think he can win from as far back as 20th. So we'll see that happen tomorrow. It's going to be a very chaotic race. Lots to be looking forward to, lots to be analysing and thinking about how these drivers are going to take on the challenges of this energy-hungry circuit. And let's have a look at some key moments of this practice session with Dan Tickton slow-mo here as he does some free grass cutting across the edge of that chicane. The DS Penske here of Jean-Eric Byrne. The black and gold DS Penske.
Home race for that team.
Absolutely, home race for them, and for, of course, Avalanche Andretti. Andretti being an absolute racing institution in the US, and probably the only team with any sort of cross-data experience here. as well.
That is true.
So we'll see if that could be beneficial. But here's Dan Tickton discussing with his engineers, probably be very happy with that show. 3rd quickest in that session. If he can replicate that in qualifying tomorrow, that puts him in a really good position to sort of have a bit more control over his race, where he will be struggling with energy efficiency, just purely based on the way that Neo has been this season. There's Jake Hughes and the Neo McLaren cooling down after a session. Now, it was just out of the top 10 for Jake Hughes, 11th quickest in that session. I'm sure he feels there's more on the table there, but there is another practice session tomorrow, of course, and then qualifying and the race that follows after that.
Yeah, we'll have some fantastic data to look at. His teammate going P1, so something to learn from overnight for Jake Hughes. Another Jake Dennis climbing out of the car. As we mentioned, a home race for that team, Avalanche Andretti, Michael Andretti and co here, already here this weekend watching on.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a big weekend for him because he comes off a very consistent run of 4 podiums in a row. And yeah, he needs to capitalise on that momentum to keep pushing towards London and really go for that title, as does this man, Mitch Evans, Jaguar TCS racing driver, who had a great recovery after that horrible incident between him and Sam in Jakarta to get a podium and keep himself in the mix of the Drivers' Championship. Now, let's look at some of the highlights from this free practice session. The drivers head out for the first time of the weekend and start putting in their laps in this very unusual circuit for Formula E. Lots of runoff, being used very much so by Jake Dennis there, avoiding his own teammate Andre Lochera and doing some free grass cutting while he does it. Moment there between Sam Bird and Lucas Di Grassi. Sam not happy at all with Lucas taking up space on the track there when he believed he was on a faster lap. Here's the 2 DS Penske drivers, John-Eric Verne and Stoffel Van Dorn. John-Eric Verne closing the session 2nd quickest. More runoff. Oliver, this was a really utilised part of the circuit when it comes to runoff, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's just very high speed, high commitment. Fantastic slow-mo of Jake Dennis there, using that apex curving. John-Eric Verne, looks like he just wanted to test the extra runoff there. No testing here. That was a big mistake from John-Eric Verne again.
Really not leaving a lot out on track there, trying to maximise that lap time. And then we have Dan Tickton, again, still pushing, getting a bit of grass. It just shows you, like you said earlier, Nelson, that's a wall on any other circuit, and that's race over. So,
well, not only that, I mean, it will take them 3 times as long to reach the limit and really have the confidence to be able to carry those kind of speeds if there were walls around.
And there we go, there's Rene Rast, the man that topped the session. And there he is, there. Just going into a debrief, I imagine, after this session. Kind of reverse pit lane, push lane situation we have here, where he's going right now is actually behind the pit lane, and we've got the kind of traditional American IndyCar style pit lane where the drivers and teams are just kind of pulling out 15 minutes for a session. But yes, Rene Rast here, quickest in that session. Rene fast, doing what he does best. Antonio Felix Costa shaking his head, didn't like something about that. The champion in 2020, season 6 champion, Antonio Felix Costa. Nico Muller, Robin Frines here from Apt Cupra. Now, a good qualifying position would be very, very good for them here. Again, similar to Tickton, the car hasn't been great efficiency-wise, but if they can manage qualifying well, get up there, they have much more control over their own race. So it's going to be very interesting. Here we go, Andre Lochera, Avalanche Andretti, Sam Bird. A ridiculous height difference between these 2 drivers. And they're catching up at the end of this thing. Yeah, here we go. We know the timings. Let's see how it pans out.